Right, well, my next guest has been described as many things: colourful, maverick, charismatic and indeed controversial. He wants Britain out of Europe. He's fond of a beer and a fag and never one to pull his punches. Would you welcome, please, UKIP MEP Nigel Farage.
But in spite of all temptations to belong to other nations, he remains an Englishman. He remains an Englishman.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for coming to see us here tonight. Your UKIP, of course, is your party of choice. Do you want to explain to us, or can you define it to an Irish audience who may or may not be familiar with what you do?
Yeah, we believe the best people to govern Britain are the British people themselves. We should trade with Europe, be friendly with Europe, cooperate with Europe, but we should make our own laws in our own country. Our own Supreme Court should be supreme. We should control our borders. And actually, we should be thinking a bit more about doing deals with the rest of the world, not just for Europe.
What do you think that people who don't like UKIP think of you? Can you hold the mirror up a bit?
Oh, gosh.
What do they generally say about you that drives you mad?
I've been called everything.
Like what?
I've been called everything.
Go for it, Nigel.
Xenophobic. They've even tried to sort of tar me with a racist brush. I mean, look, if you take on the establishment in any political system,
yes,
they will abuse you. But what's interesting is now we've got some pretty senior figures in the Conservative Party and one or two in the Labour Party saying pretty much the same things that I've been saying for the last 10 years.
As it happens. And are they xenophobic and racist?
Well, is the British public xenophobic and racist? I mean, 75% of Britons think we should have better border controls. It's actually a reasonable, sensible position.
But you didn't take any seats at the last election in the House of Commons, so I'm just, you know, in terms of popular support. No, you did. You what? You had 12% support.
We won the European elections.
Oh, no, I appreciate the general election.
First time for 100 years.
Yes.
A party that wasn't Labour or Tory won a national election.
Yes.
And in the general election, we were the third party by vote. We got more votes than the Lib Dems, the SNP, and Plaid Cymru added together. But under our electoral system, 4 million votes.
No seats.
One seat.
One seat, excuse me, one seat.
We were
and not you.
And not me. No,
but
what we have got is a referendum.
Yes.
That wouldn't have happened without UKIP's
OK,
pressure.
you think that your turning of the screw there forced that issue in itself?
Oh, Cameron was dead against having a referendum.
Yes.
Dead against it. He saw UKIP rise in the polls. He promised if he won the election, he'd give us a referendum.
He doesn't like you, does he, David Cameron?
No, he's not alone in that. It's got to be said.
I know. He said your party members are all fruitcakes, loonies and closet racists.
Yeah, well, it just goes to show, doesn't it, that sometimes, rather than going for the ball, they go for the man.
Yeah.
And that's what they've tried to do with me over the years. Just lately, they've given up doing it.
Why do they keep coming back to this idea of xenophobia and racism for you? What have you said, or party members said, that makes this moniker, name-calling, persist for you?
Well, I've said nothing.
You've said nothing?
Absolutely
Is it one of the
nothing.
other lads who referred to Bongo Land?
Oh, but every party has got people that say crazy things. I mean, that is, stupidity is not confined to UKIP.
Okay.
Please
so you
believe me.
dismiss him as a stupid person?
Well, people make silly comments and distract from the main message, of course. Look, the fact that we want to control our borders, every country in the world controls its borders unless we're inside the European Union.
Angela Merkel speaking during the week. Did you like what she had to say about everyone taking their fair share of immigrants and trying to help out in this case?
Well, I think she's made the biggest policy error we've seen in modern times.
In what sense?
By saying everyone should come. Germany will take limitless numbers. It led to a stampede. She's now clearly changed her mind.
Yes.
And she's now talking about deporting people who aren't genuine refugees. So her policy is all over the place.
And your thoughts on what to do when you see the scenes of families and, making their way by foot away from horrible situations? How do you think we should deal with
Well, I think what we should do is to take genuine refugees.
Yes.
People who are in fear of their lives because of their race, their religion, their class, their views. My family were political refugees. French Protestants who were being burnt at the stake, something some in modern-day Britain would like to bring back, I'm sure. And we did it for Jewish people from Russia and from Germany. We did it for the Ugandan Asians in the 70s when Armenians threatened to kill them. We know what a genuine refugee is. What Europe has done is to encourage people to go to the criminal traffickers, to take massive risks. And we saw that photograph of that 3-year-old boy that was dead on the beach. But there have been 3,000 people this year that have drowned. And our policy has encouraged people to do that. It's a huge mistake.
You said at one point, Nigel, that parts of Britain today have, quote, frankly become unrecognisable and look like a foreign land. Tell me about that.
Unrecognisable, I have said, yeah. You take a borough like Newham.
Yeah.
in northwest London, where 80% of primary school pupils come from families in which English is not the first language. The first basic rule of people integrating together, regardless of their background or religion, but actually communities being together, is they've got to speak the same language. I mean, look, we had immigration to Britain in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s ran at net about 30,000 a year. It's now running at 1/3 a year, and the argument is that is too many to integrate.
And how's that going down, do you think? I mean, do people not see... some people interpret that as being, you know... They say, Nigel, the British Empire, this is... A lot of this, certainly in the decades you described from post-war, it's a hangover from the days where you guys were owning so much. And you say, well, that's the price of empire.
Well, that's exactly what we did. It's exactly what we did. So people came to Britain from Jamaica and from India and from Pakistan. As I say, it ran net at 30,000 a year.
Yeah.
We now, and let's be fair, Ireland too, we now have a complete open door to the whole of southern and eastern Europe, and the numbers that are coming now are about 10 times the number that came post-war.
And a lot of whom are families fleeing horrible stories, horrible scenarios?
No, not really. They're coming from countries like Lithuania, Poland, Romania, Bulgaria.
Yeah.
They're a bit poorer than we are as countries, but you know, by no means are these war-torn regions.
So what's the answer?
The answer is to have an Australian-style point system. You know, if anybody in this room wanted to get a job in Australia or America, they'd apply for a work permit, they'd have to prove they hadn't got a criminal record, they would have to have health insurance because the state wouldn't pay for them from day one, and that's what most normal countries do. That's what I want the UK to do.
Do you have an issue with Islam?
No, no, I don't. Some countries do. Let's be frank.
Yeah.
I mean, the euro has been very divisive within the European Union. You know, Ireland's paid a very heavy price. I mean, you've got 70 billion euros worth of debt around your neck, which you took on. Michael Martin made clear. Ireland saved the Eurozone, so well done the Irish taxpayer. But we've got Greece, Spain, all those countries in a terrible conflict. But the biggest conflict is the migration crisis. And you've got the Prime Minister of Slovakia, the Prime Minister of Hungary. They have a problem with Islam coming to their country. That isn't my problem. My problem is...
Do you agree with their take on that issue?
No, because in fact, Britain is a country of great religious tolerance. We always have been.
And are you a man of great religious tolerance?
Of course, yes. Yeah. I mean, look, you know, one of the features of our society, one of the features of my family's history, is we came to Britain because it was a tolerant country. My problem is with his Islamic extremism, as it is with all of us. And when ISIS say they will use the boats crossing the Mediterranean to flood Europe with their fighters, we should take it seriously. That
scares you. But the difficulty, isn't it, is that if you have a boat full of people trying to get away from somewhere, how do you know...
Well, which is why what Europe should be doing is processing people in North Africa, in the Middle East, working out who is a refugee and who isn't.
It's funny because people talk about you, as you say, in terms of xenophobia and possible in racism, and you get accused of these things, and yet your first wife was Irish.
Yep.
And your current wife is German.
Yep, and I drink Spanish wine.
And you drink Spanish wine.
You know.
So there's, you know...
More than is good for me, it's got to be said.
What's that?
More than is good for me,
More
it's
than
got
is
to be
good
said.
for you. Yeah. So you're kind of open-minded in some parts of your life, for sure.
No, I love Europe. Let's make no mistake about it. I love Europe.
Do you?
Of course I love Europe. I've worked for French companies. I enjoy travelling in Europe. It is the most fascinating, diverse continent on Earth.
Yes.
What I don't like is the idea of all these different European states being dragged together, stuck in one currency, one set of rules, and run by a bunch of unelected old men in Brussels. That's not the Europe I want.
And what is that? Is that getting traction? Is that why your party, the UKIP, has done so well in the European elections in Britain? Because they feel that they want hands off?
I think what we feel is my mum and dad voted for a common market. You know, we joined on the same day that Ireland joined. It was about trade. It was about getting rid of, you know, artificial barriers, and that all made sense. What we didn't vote for was a flag, an anthem, and as was made clear this week by Monsieur Hollande, a European army.
Yeah.
You know, so the EU is now militarising, developing its foreign policy. I've never voted for that.
How long are you an MEP now?
16 years.
16 years.
Yeah.
And are you a member of a parliament you loathe?
Yes. But then that's
Why?
not uncommon. That's not uncommon.
No, but
I mean, the SNP go to Westminster. They've been going there for decades. The Catalan separatists go
tell
to
me about you.
Madrid.
Let me ask you about you. You're sitting there in this place, and I've seen you in action sometimes.
Well, actually, the truth of it is,
Go on.
I've had great fun doing it.
What, acting the maggot?
I've had huge fun doing it, and I've really got under their skin once or twice, and no, I've enjoyed it.
Tell me a little bit about your sort of your persona, which I presume it's not a phony one. The pints and the smokes and all that kind of. Where does that come? Kind of unreconstructed man in a world of politically correct and sensible things. You're just up for a pint and a smoke.
Well, I'm not a politician. I was a businessman. You know, I spent 20 years in business. The last 9 running my own business. I got into politics because I thought we'd frankly gone soft, and I feared that the British Parliament would take us into the euro, which thank goodness we didn't do.
Yeah.
So I haven't come into this. I haven't got, an army of spin doctors telling me, what I should do, what I should say. It's just me.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it.
But you are a politician. You can't deny that. I mean, you are in the political system. You are elected. You ran for the election to the House of Commons. So you are a politician now, aren't you?
Well, I'm in politics.
You're in denial.
But I'm not a career. Well, I'm not a career politician. If I wasn't in politics, there's a load of other things I could do.
16 years would be a career for some people.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
And we now have a referendum.
OK.
And within the next 18 months, I will either win or lose.
What if the Brexit, as they call it, if the British decide to leave the European project, with the big grin on your face, I'll say, where does that leave you and UKIP? Is that your raison d'etre over? Do you go back to business or go fishing or go for a pint or what happens?
Well, I might do that, yeah. But would UKIP disappear? No. We're not going to hand control of the country back to the political parties that gave it away in the first place. We wouldn't trust them to do it. And we're the only party making plans for what Britain can do once we've left the European Union, how we can do our own trade deals with the rest of the world, how we can, and there's something here I think that perhaps the Irish should think about, how we take back our fisheries.
Yeah, which is a big question in this country. But equally, the question arises, and we're into hypotheticals again, but if Britain leaves the European Union, where does that leave the Anglo-Irish relationship between our islands?
Trade-wise, completely unchanged. In friendship terms, completely unchanged. But
travel coming and going, all these things, borders.
We've had, ever since 21. We've had free movement between Britain and Ireland, and there's no problem with that, and there is no threat to that.
Yeah. What sort of response do you get when you come to Ireland, Nigel, from people on the street? Are you recognised?
I have done some market research this evening.
Yes.
I did visit a couple of establishments in Dublin just to find out.
This evening? Can you remember which ones?
Well, I'm not going to advertise them.
OK.
Because they might be embarrassed.
But you were researching?
No, actually, look, come on. There's been this myth put about by the Irish media, and the Irish media are slavishly pro-EU. I saw that.
What's the myth? Sorry.
Well, the myth is that Ireland loves the European Union. It's a very, very pro-EU country. Yeah. Twice in the last 15 years, the Irish people have voted no in referendums on European treaties, and then been told, you got it wrong, you must vote again.
No, I think that they'd argue that the second vote is, are you sure?
Well...
and then they scare the bejesus out of us, and then we go, I know you're right the first time.
They did. I mean, I was involved in those referendums on Lisbon. I mean, the second referendum was an absolute travesty of any fair debate.
But the Irish electorate aren't stupid. I mean, they chose to go into the ballot box. We debate stuff within an inch of
They're not
life.
Stupid, which is why they voted no twice.
Well, indeed, and then decided to go the other way.
Because they've been bullied, and because actually, as I say, that second referendum on the Lisbon Treaty was not a free and fair election.
I'd like to get a kind of an insight into the Faragian future. If you can imagine, Nigel, your ideal political setup in the UK. Give us an indication. Are you Prime Minister in this setup? Have a little dream there.
I'm not just talking about the UK. It's actually the future of Europe that I care about.
OK.
I want us to live in a Europe where we have a trade deal, where we cooperate with each other, where we're friends with each other, but where we don't have, political union based in Brussels. And I think the whole of Europe would be a happier, better and more prosperous place if we did that.
And you'd do something about immigration control if you were running the show over in the UK?
Every other country in the world does. Over 200 countries in the world have immigration controls. It's only within the European Union that we've abandoned that principle.
What do Irish people most want to talk to you about when you're sitting down having a pint and you meet some Irish people? What are they intrigued about?
They're intrigued about why they haven't got a UKIP in Ireland. Because after all, Sinn Féin were very, very anti-EU for a long, long time. That position appears to have softened. So it's a really odd situation that a country where Eurosceptic opinion is very strong doesn't have a party, dedicated to that.
We shall see. It's been good to have you on the show, and thanks
Thank
for
you
coming
very
to see
much.
us tonight. Nigel Farage, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Nigel. And after the break, something completely different. Pat Short will be here. You will not want to miss it. See you shortly.